My name is Courtney Sullivan, and I'm a novelist. I'm the author of Commencement and Maine. First thing I ever wrote, probably a ripoff of the song Downtown. You know that song? I wrote a short story that was pretty much lyric for lyric, Downtown, but I got an A+ on it from my kindergarten teacher. Shameful, shameful. Ever since then, I've been writing short stories and plays and now novels. Maine is a story of 3 generations of women in an Irish Catholic family who gather at their family beach house in Maine one summer, as they have every year for the last 60 years. And hijinks ensue, I guess you could say. Everyone comes with their own kind of secrets and resentments, and we move from there. It's funny, with Commencement, people would ask me who I identified with, and I'd say all of the characters, with the exception of Bree, who is the beautiful blonde Southern belle. She's just the girl I always become friends with, and then, you know, sort of secretly resent for her beauty. But with Maine, I really don't feel a kinship to any of the characters. They're all they're very complicated women, we could say. I think I understand them more than I like them or feel that I'm like them. It's autobiographical in the sense that I come from a big Irish Catholic family myself. As I've told you before, I had dinner with my extended family after Commencement came out when I was on book tour, and I was already writing Maine. They all knew I was writing Maine. And one of my uncles stood up to give this lovely toast saying, "We're so proud of you, we love you so much, and we have to get this on the table now, because by the time your next book comes out in a year, none of us will be speaking to you anymore." So definitely, I've pulled bits and pieces from my own family, and I think anyone who's ever vacationed with their extended family kind of understands that it's like this immersion course in your own relatives, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. But none of the characters are necessarily like a one-to-one correlation to anyone I'm actually related to, since I don't want to be, disowned over this. I've never written a character who I really didn't like. I get them all. So even if I know that they're not the most lovable people in the world, I understand why they are the way they are, where they're coming from. And so I think it would be hard for me to take one of my real enemies in life and make them a character, because I'd rather not get into the sort of psyche of why they are who they are. I'd rather just hate them. I think Anne-Marie, who is probably my favorite character in the book, she is in her early 60s, she's raised 3 children, and on the outside she's kind of a Stepford wife. She's tried to be the controller of her own little universe for many, many years, but her kids are grown, and now she's gotten very into dollhouses, and that's how she kind of tries to control the world on a much smaller scale. She was kind of an interesting character to get into. At first she was almost more of a caricature, but over time I understood kind of why Anne-Marie turned into this kind of woman, and also the fact that she's sort of working around the clock to project this idea of perfection. For Maine, I did a lot of research into Alice's life, what Alice would have gone through as a teenager, as a young woman, and of course the Coconut Grove fire, which was a real fire that occurred in Boston in the 40s. I did a lot of actual research into that while I was working on the book. And also the dollhouses. The sister-in-law, Kathleen, is a worm farmer, so I interviewed quite a few worm farmers about what that's all about. So there was a fair amount of research that went into the book, yes. I think a worm farm is the kind of thing that sounds funnier than it is. I mean, actually, it makes quite a lot of sense. These are the people who are taking your sort of countertop composting that you do at home to like the next level and making it an actual profitable business. And that was why I chose this for Kathleen, because she comes from this very traditional Irish Catholic family, and everything she does in the family kind of gets mocked, no matter what it is. So she's gone to California, she's started this very successful worm farm, but to her family it just sounds like the punchline of another Kathleen joke. And this is something that drives her nuts, because she knows there's lots of people who think what she does is fantastic. So the worm farmers I talked to, what are they like? They are very passionate about what they do. There were a few I spoke to who told me exactly what worms like to eat and what they don't like to eat. Apparently worms hate to eat citrus fruit. They love to eat rose petals. Who knew? So these people do feel a real fondness for their worms. I am working on a novel about marriage. It follows 4 marriages starting in the 1920s and going to present day. There are 5 narrators in this book as opposed to my usual 4, but one may end up on the cutting room floor, I'm not exactly sure. And the characters this time around, the difference between sort of my first 2 novels and this one, there are male narrators, which should be an interesting thing. I've never done that before. And also the characters are not connected to one another. They don't know each other as they do in my first 2 books. So it should be kind of a new challenge, but I'm excited to dig into it. In part, the book is about diamonds and the culture around diamonds in America and sort of De Beers and how they play into that and their advertising strategies, which all kind of started in the 1920s, 1930s. At this point in the game, I really share it with my agent, with my editor, who I trust enormously, and they give me feedback, but I don't show it to too many people. When I write a newspaper article or a magazine article or an essay, I have a couple of friends who always look at those for me and give me their feedback, but I think that to ask any friend to read a novel is a little bit much. Once the book is sort of at a full draft, I have a couple of other people in my life who are willing to read it and give amazing feedback, which I'm very lucky for. Well, the book's coming out in June 2013, so we hope I'll be finished sometime before that.